Hey, hello, this is Vip Vipperman. Excited to be here for the Back in the Bold podcast this morning and looking forward to a conversation with Jonathan Kumar of Samaritan. Jonathan, glad to have you with us on the podcast today.
Hey, good morning, Vip. Thanks for inviting us on.
Jonathan, hey, where are you in the world, my friend?
Calling in from Manhattan. Samaritan started in Seattle. A lot of our work is in California, but our my wife took us east to take a job in New York City. So I've been here for about 2 years.
Nice, in the big city, man. That's awesome. I'm sure you guys are getting close to, Rockefeller Center and all the fun things that'll be happening over the holidays.
A lot of folks to serve here. But yeah, I mean, just the access to culture, music, nature, even food. It's been good for us. My daughter,
Awesome.
she spent 2 years now. Most of her life has been in New York City. She's just a city girl. Loves the subway, loves Central Park. It's a good time.
That's awesome. Dude, well, hey, tell us a little bit about the backstory of Jonathan Kumar before we jump into the story of Samaritan.
My parents came to New York State in the late 80s. They were immigrants to Buffalo, New York. And my dad was a student. My mom wasn't working. I was around living on a student stipend of about $600 to $800 a month. And so from the beginning, we were in public housing. Our car was worth less than $1,000 in value. I was born in a public hospital. And, we very, very much leaned on this church actually that sort of adopted my parents and provided financially, provided relationally, even provided legal support for us, cultural support. It was this ministry that did a lot of outreach to international students. And so we were kind of brought in, uh, taken in as their own in a sense, and they invested in us for about 5 years, such that when my dad graduated, he and we were able to stay in the States with a job versus go back to India. Um, and so, most of my life after that was on Easy Street, but you never really forget that dependence that you have and the empowerment that you received during that time. So, that was a long time ago. Fast forward 25 years, I got to study economics and user experience design at the University of Michigan, graduated, helped start a company called Food Circles in Michigan. In 2015, we moved out to Seattle to scale our operations. And just in that work, I felt like maybe I was being called to something that had greater potential for impact than the work I was doing at the time. And so I figured maybe I would take 2 years or so and work at an ad agency or at Google or something like that. But just notice how pervasive, human suffering was in this beautiful city. And and so, you know, with the hat of a user experience designer on, I started just spending time with folks on the street, who were begging strangers for help, who were living outdoors in these tents, and just asking them, how they got to where they were trying to go, what was keeping them from getting there. And, I had some crucial conversations, some life changing conversations on the street in those early days. And I just, developed this hypothesis that if I could get, if I could develop a way to get everyone on the street that I saw the same type of financial and social capital that my parents received coming into the country, that most of these individuals, just like my parents, would materially change their lives forever. And so I believed that that capital existed, and it was just a matter of getting it to them. And, that's where technology comes in. And so I had our user figured out. It took us many years to figure out the customer, but that's kind of the genesis of how Samaritan started.
Nice. So, from growing up in the inner city, like, immigrating to the US, like big transition, trying to figure out life and getting established here to go into a good school, getting a great education, building companies from the ground up, and then getting a chance to start your own. That's pretty amazing. It's been quite a journey. Well, so tell me a little bit, when you guys started building Samaritan, you were spending some time with people on the streets. Um, what was the problem you specifically saw that really drew you into this concept? And then we'll go from the problem to what is the solution that you discovered that, really felt like it could change things.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Vib. The more the stories I heard from people on the street, I mean, people lose their housing for all sorts of reasons, from job loss, spousal abuse, a death, medical issues, all of these different reasons people end up on the street. But the red thread behind all of them, from what I found, is that the person lacked or lost their social capital. They had burned all their bridges, or they never had bridges to begin with that could help them stay in some form of housing. And absent of that is when you see people land on the street. That's the common denominator that I've seen. And I could see that on a daily, moment by moment basis, seeing people on the street. There was a conversation I had with an individual in particular. Well, I guess you asked the question like, what was the core problem I wanted to solve? And I feel like that social capital, that relational poverty piece, is at its core what Samaritan is here to solve. We provide,
Hmm.
money and financial incentives and stuff, but you can hear it in the voices and the words of our members and our case management partners that are using our technology, that at the end of the day, it's a social home that leads to a physical home. And
Hmm.
you need both. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, I think, the core problem. I'll tell one story about how this really manifested in a heartbreaking way for me. Was I was still at my last startup. I was eating a lunch. I was eating lunch outside on kind of a rare sunny day in Seattle, and maybe 50 yards away from me was a guy who was holding a sign. Maybe 100 yards was a guy holding a sign at an intersection. And so I am just observing him for about 15, 20 minutes as I could see him, but it didn't look like anyone else could. Every window of a car like stayed closed, drove on by. Every person walking by on their way to lunch or a meeting or something like didn't seem to really see him or acknowledge that he existed. And so after I finished my sandwich, I approached him and I read his sign, and the sign said, "Need medication for the diabetes in my feet." And he's standing there gingerly, not able to raise the money that he needed to raise. And so I asked him, I was like, "Excuse me, sir, do you mind if I ask you what you feel your challenges are in terms of raising this money? Do you feel people aren't carrying cash on them these days?" And he just cut me off. He's like, "I've got the wrong look for this, the wrong skin color. Nobody believes me. Nobody believes I am who I say I am."
Hmm.
And that really hurt. And uh, I thought about that for a second, and then my next question was, you know, if you don't have any money, you shouldn't need to pay for your medication. Do you have access to a doctor that could give you this medication for free? And he said, "Yes, I do have a doctor through the shelter I'm staying at, but he only trusts me with about a fifth of the medication I need to manage the pain. He won't give me any more because he thinks I'm going to get addicted to it or sell it."
Hmm.
And so, in that moment, again, it's just like this realization that beyond financial poverty, there is relational poverty here, both from everyday individuals passing him by, walking by him, as well as even professional providers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just knew that there's more that we can do. There's a better way to help people that need help. And so just thought about building it.
Nice. So, what is the solution that you guys found? Tell us a little bit about Samaritan and what it does.
Yeah. So Samaritan is a support platform that helps people on or near the street access the financial capital and also the relational capital needed to find a stable home, stable income, stable health. So practically what we do is we'll get a contract. These days, it's mostly in the healthcare space. We'll partner with hospitals, with health insurers who, like, the problem that they face is that because of instability like homelessness, where people aren't sleeping, people are being abused, people are falling into substance use disorders, mental illnesses. It's just being on the street is really really bad for your health, physically, mentally,
Yeah.
as you can imagine. And at the bottom of the hill of situations like homelessness or yeah, I mean like trafficking, um, exploitation, these things, like the bottom of the hill is always the emergency room, the ambulance, the hospital. And so people end up there with no ability to pay. They get treated, they get released, but because the situation outside the hospital isn't fixed, they end up right back where they started, except this time the situation's worse. So for our hospital and healthcare partners, annually there's probably $200 billion in expenses that they incur that could have been addressed if we helped people stabilize outside the hospital walls. Um,
Wow.
Big
Wow. That's
opportunity.
a big number.
It is, yeah, yeah. It's that's for like the bottom 10% income earners in America. There's 200 billion in addressable, preventable medical costs that they are working with us as part of many investments to try and solve for.
Yeah. So how does that process happen? Like,
Yeah,
what do
yeah.
you do?
Yeah, so we basically we'll get a contract with these payers or providers to deploy our support platform to let's say a homeless population. And so we have these physical smart wallets that we'll prepare and mail to these like frontline outreach teams or social work teams, case managers, community health workers, navigators, a bunch of titles, and then they basically will offer Samaritan memberships to the population that they are trying to serve, people on the street, people on their way out of the hospital that have no address. So they'll invite someone to be a part of Samaritan, and then if the person's interested, they get this fancy card. I don't have it with me right now, but they get this fancy card and are invited to share a bit of their story, the goals that they have in life, and then our technology breaks those goals down into bite-sized action steps. Tangible things the person can do over the next 2, 7, 14, 28 days. Um, and really from there, the person, the new member of Samaritan, starts to receive direct financial support and social support to take action towards those goals that the case managers help them set. Very practically, the first action step is almost always to make it from point A, the hospital, to point B, some sort of community health center, um, case management team, housing navigation office, and basically to get established with someone who can provide longitudinal care around the person's behavioral health and social needs like housing, income, so on and so forth. So they'll get $10 actually most of the time from making it from point A to point B. And that itself,
Oh,
like
well,
helping people go from A to B, is so valuable to these healthcare systems who are giving out these referrals already, to go from the hospital to social services essentially, and seeing 10% of those referrals result in any type of value,
actually.
maybe 20%. We see when we provide our mix of financial and social support to people that 10 to 20% can very quickly turn into 80 to 90% participation. That's just unheard of.
Oh, well.
And so we help people go from A to B and then stick with point B long enough for something really, really good to happen over time. We, once the person makes it to point B, let's say a community health center, there are case managers over there who are also using our technology and helping the person set their next set of action steps. So, attend a recovery group, get your ID, submit this application. Those three things. Maybe call your sister. Those four things. Like, we're going to focus on those four bite-sized action steps over the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And Samaritan is providing a little bit of upfront capital to help them like pay for phone service or bus fare, um, get something to eat, get some clothing, pay for a storage unit, let's say, and we're providing back end capital, so they're earning a bonus for taking these action steps, and then they're getting social support, which is delivered through texts and emails and phone calls from a team of people with lived experience that we'll contract with, people who've been in their shoes before, as well as volunteers from churches, companies, student groups who are sending messages through our safe platform that go to the individual. If they have a phone, they'll get a text. If they don't, they'll get an email. If they don't have an email, they'll get it to the next time they talk to their case manager. So we see that the combination of the financial and social support leads to, as I said, like a 4x participation rate in a person's kind of next steps or case management plan. And over time, as you can imagine, that stacks up. That momentum builds into a person getting housed, let's say in 3 months instead of 6, or 6 months instead of 12. And that is
Mm.
so good, in terms of helping a person recover control of their health and their life.
Wow. That's amazing. So tell me a little bit about the product itself. You're saying they get like, for instance, you mentioned going from A to B, they get like a little credit card looking device, and then do they tap it when they get it handed to them? They got to hold on to it and they tap it when they get there, and it's like, swipe it kind of a thing, and then there's value on the device.
For sure. So this is the wallet that people get, and then you can kind of see it, and the card that they start with is this thing right here. So
Nice.
they get this, fancy looking card, and we've just written values that we want a person to remember that are true about them. On the front, we've engraved them there, and then the back here has an NFC tag actually that they can take and tap at any provider frontline care team that's using our technology. So they get this physical card, let's say at the hospital or on the street. They get $10 for signing up, and then they get $10 if they make it to point B. And then when they make it to point B, they can tap this card on the case manager's device, and then up comes the person's profile on like our case management app essentially. And so the
Nice. And
person,
then they can
yeah.
use that money at different places to buy something.
Yeah, so the first way that they can use the money is that the case manager on our app or our website can order whatever the person needs. So they can order Amazon items, they can order like bus fare, phone service, storage locker bills to be paid, deposits to be sent, debt to be paid. You know, we have a fulfillment service that handles all of that for the case management team, so they don't have to spend the time doing that.
Oh, wow.
Um, and so sometimes the person, like the case managers, will want the person to kind of like build up balance and then put it towards some sort of big ticket item. But most of the time, actually, the case manager actually just wants to put the funds into the person's hands. So we have a Samaritan debit card that just looks like a debit card with our branding. And the case manager can load the funds onto that card from our platform, give the debit card to the individual, and then the person can use it online, in person, for most types of spending.
Nice. And you don't find that that type of technology is too difficult for the average person to use coming from that background?
It's a great question. Great question. From the start, we knew that we couldn't require technology access. We couldn't require people having a smartphone to participate or a data plan, just because that technology access is so inconsistent when you don't have a place to charge your phone or to keep it from getting wet or stolen or stepped on. And so we're very intentional about this not being an app that our members would have to use. And so they get the physical wallet. It gets lost, we can replace it. Pretty simple. And there is sort of a threshold where a person needs to be in a place where they understand, the idea of having a debit card balance and, you know, um, those sorts of things. So if they can use a debit card, they can participate in Samaritan, and that's 90. 95% of people that we see on the street.
Nice. No, that's incredible. And there may be a few that don't get it, or it's a little challenging for them because of education or understanding. But in general, for the 90+%, it's pretty easy and practical to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
we see people like their mental capacity open up, where we have case managers like, oh, I don't know if this he'll really understand this or respond to this, that surprise them, that are
Yeah.
like, okay, I get it. I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna get this. Like most people understand that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. You're kind of gamifying the kind of learning to live in the culture and like society, as it were, as in a bit of normalcy and stuff like that,
exactly.
which I
Yeah.
imagine helps them a lot. So talk to me about the impact. I mean, you're taking a person who, one day is like in a tent or potentially, on cardboard boxes, living
Mhm.
on the streets for some period of time, and within, 6 months, they're in housing, having a debit card, and able to, operate their life in a more, we'll say, more standard kind of a way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're able to use their gifts and sleep better. Makes a huge difference. Um, yeah. So I think that we see that when offered to people on the street, about 7 of 10 people who are invited to become a member Samaritan will accept it. 7 or 8, and then from those 7 or 8, you know, 4, 5, or 6 of those individuals will actually start taking next steps that they weren't taking before. And it's these bite-sized action steps that over time lead to these life-changing outcomes. Like we're not providing housing, we don't own any apartments, we're not building any homes, and we don't employ people or even provide services. We just It's so hard to take these consistent steps over time, even in my life, like as a housed, resource, privileged individual, to make steady progress over time is challenging, and much less when you're not sleeping and when you're in true danger, and especially if you're not a dude, on the street. And so the impact starts with just helping people make sustained progress towards their goals, which is so hard, and
Mm.
that's why people end up staying on the street for years, is just because you miss one appointment, you miss one bus, and you're set back for weeks because it's just such a lonely, debilitating, cold, challenging experience. It's so hard to make progress. So people stay where they are, and then people blame them for staying where they are. They're like, oh, you just want to be here, don't you? Which is such a naive and ill-informed way to think.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand. I imagine there's some difficult moments in that space. Well, tell me one story, or like tell the audience one story that really defines the work you're doing. Like, is there a story you guys have seen of a person whose life has truly been transformed by this work?
Yeah, so we've served. I think by the end of the year, we may hit 5,000 members served. So people on or near the street who've taken at least one action step towards housing, income, or health. Something we're thankful for. Though it's a drop in the bucket in terms of the tens of hundreds of thousands of lives we want to serve ultimately. Um, you talked about impact, and I'll share a story. Our first ever Samaritan member is this guy named Chuck, downtown Seattle. He lived in a wheelchair for about 3 years on the street, and so he used to sort of access services, but they just hadn't been helpful enough to him, or it was just too hard. So he stopped. He was just out there, and he's the first person outside of a like a shelter feed, a gospel rescue mission, that we gave a membership to. And so he, started getting dollars from people passing by. We had this Samaritan app that allowed you to learn people's stories and contribute to them relationally or financially. And so he started getting these dollars, and he started getting, $5 a week, or maybe it was like $10 every 2 weeks for checking in with this case management team. And so he's getting the dollars, and we're seeing how he's spending the money, and it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just chips, soda, food, clothing, whatever. And but he's consistent. He's like doing his check-ins and so forth. So he gets his membership in September, and he, like, come February next year, March or something like that, his hangout spot was pretty close to where our co-working space was, and I stopped seeing him. And at first I was concerned, but I I think I saw an outreach team walking around the area. I was like, "Hey, have you guys seen Chuck recently? Where's he been at?" He's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, the outreach guy was like, oh, you didn't hear? He got housed. Yeah, he got housed through this case management team." And I like found out some more details, and it was through a person he built a relationship with through those check-ins. And
Mm.
so it was, pretty transactional to start. He'd go in apparently and just get his $5 or whatever and go back out. But I don't know, maybe it was 2 or 3 months down the road, he had developed enough of a connection with the person where they built a relationship. And then, 4 months later or 5 months later, that case manager offered to take him on a housing tour to see accessible units that he could use with the housing voucher that he could help him access. And he said yes. 6 months later, he was housed. And I saw him a couple months after that, and he had lost a lot of weight. He was able to take some steps out of his wheelchair. Um, it was just a beautiful thing. And so, you talk about like impact on our members, doesn't get any better than that, but it also saves our customers a lot of money. When a person is more stable, when they
Mm.
are able to live a healthier life, sleep better, they're not coming into the ER nearly as often, the hospital nearly as often. We can save a health system $100,000 a year and help a person have a bed and a kitchen and a bathroom and a place to store their belongings. And so, talk about bottom
Yeah.
line impact. It doesn't get any better than that. We've seen that dozens, hundreds of times at this point.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah, just the transformational impact. And I love that it's a win for both sides of the ecosystem. There's a lot of great nonprofits who serve people who are living on the streets. But the fact that you figured out a group, in this case, the hospital systems, the healthcare systems, who have a financial benefit from the partnership and from working with you guys as well. It's just fascinating to see that it's a for-profit business that can have significant revenue and at the same time make such a positive impact on the lives of people. It's truly incredible. How long has it taken, like from the first idea of Samaritan to, today you're serving about 5,000, you've served about 5,000 people. What's that timeline look like?
It's rough, man. It's taken a long time. I started doing research in 2015 on this, and we signed Chuck up, at the beginning of 2017. So it's been a long and rich journey.
Yeah, 8 to 10 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That so many people have played a vital part in. I think of Praxis. I think of Techstars. I think of, man, tons of other organizations and people that have thrown us lifelines to allow us to figure it out. Like I mentioned, that we've been pretty married to our mission and our user. People on or near the street. Our mission of reaching every one of those people with the financial and social capital that they deserve to find their way into a stable home. But figuring out the customer has taken us time. Um, you know, Figuring, like, we started with our first contracts came from downtown real estate groups. We were pursuing cities and nonprofits, trying to charge them. It wasn't going well. The pandemic hit. So we decided to make our last hurrah with the funding we had and pivot into healthcare. And that has taken years to get into these durable, multi-year, six-figure, seven-figure type contracts, which now are helping us reach a lot of people. We're producing data every 12 months for our customers that they need to see in terms of cost savings or health quality improvement that they need to continue to grow how many seats on the platform they're willing to pay for. And we're getting enough data now where we can start going back to the city, start going back to the counties, so we can serve more diverse populations. The healthcare industry, they're primarily focused on the 10% most expensive or the 5% most expensive, but we want to be able to serve everyone on the street or near the street, even if they're not going to the hospital all the time, obviously. So um, it's been quite a journey, but we have been able to see millions of dollars saved for our customers, and help hundreds or thousands of people achieve greater stability and opportunity to use their God-given gifts. So yeah, we're proud of that. A lot of work to do though.
That's awesome. Well, tell me a little bit. One of the things I wanted to understand a little bit and maybe help the listener understand, how many employees do you guys actually have? And then how much of your work is partnering with these other organizations that are, already doing work on the street or already engaging with the homeless person?
Yes, staff about 15 folks now, I want to say. We were serving people. Let's see, we started in Seattle. We've served people in Sacramento. We're serving people in Sacramento now, Oakland, LA, San Diego, and then working east, it's Phoenix, and then Louisville. We're doing a lot of work in Louisville. I love what's happening there. And then we've tested in other cities like Baltimore, Oklahoma City, Jacksonville, New York City. Still working on kind of expanding those arrangements there. Um, and so, yeah, staff of 15, we're mostly, yeah, about a third of them are technical. And then I would say a third of them are focused on member growth, which is giving people access to Samaritan through partnerships with healthcare and government. And then a third of us are focused on implementation and outcomes. So, part our customers kind of when we partner with a hospital or a health insurance company and typically Medicaid plan, um, they have existing partnerships in the community, street outreach teams or case management teams that they're contracting or employing. So we're actually providing the technology to these frontline teams and training them how to use it in their work. And so we have an implementation team, and then we have a team that's entirely focused on just the outcomes of our members. So as you can figure, like the more financial, the higher quality and the higher quantity of financial and relational capital that we can help connect people to, the stronger the outcomes for the members, the faster they get in housing or employed or
Yeah.
whatever it is. The stronger the outcomes for the members, the stronger the outcomes for the customers. The stronger outcomes for the customers, the faster we can grow to serve 250,000 lives on or near the street by 2032, which is kind of like our North Star in terms of impact.
I was going to ask you, what does the future look like? And so you said 250,000 people by 2032. So 7 years, and
Yeah.
grow. Was that like a 50x growth?
Yeah, that's just,
It's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, that's one of those B hacks, buddy. That's an entrepreneur who's got a vision, and the team is like going for a project that is just ginormous. But the transformational impact, if you guys even get close to that number, and what happens if you exceed it, that's incredible.
Yeah, we've developed an achievement platform, or you mentioned gamification, something that works both financially and relationally for people that are experiencing extreme poverty. And I do think that there are other use cases or contexts, other organizations even that can kind of take what we have started and use it for different populations. So, you mentioned Native American outcomes. We think about veterans all the time. and how the outcomes for our veterans are just not acceptable relative to their service and the benefits they have access to. Foster young adults that are a pipeline for homelessness. I know we've gotten involved with Eagle because of the overlap with human exploitation and survivors of human trafficking, and so there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of use cases that we're almost just working on exploring now.
Dude, that's amazing. Exciting to see the potential opportunity for the future and the lives that you guys will be able to transform. Um, in a perfect world, like what do you see happen in the next like 10 or 15 years? You guys help 250,000 people and then it just rolls out to everybody so that there's no homeless anymore. Do you see a day where that actually could happen?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is I see a day where everyone on the street has opportunity or access to the financial capital, the social capital that they need to progress into a stable home, stable income, stable health. I think we can give everyone the opportunity to access that. And I think most people will take it, and that most people will, find meaningful stabilization in their life with new family or previous family. And yeah, I see a day where we can provide what my family received as immigrants to the country to every person on or near the street, and that this world will look a lot better. I mean, personally, I'm motivated by my faith. I think God wants to see deep reconciliation between the poor and the rich in His kingdom, and I think that, or I've worked such that Samaritan is a part of His strategy for that.
Dude, that's amazing. Well, really quickly before we finish up, I often tell people like in this moment, solicit please. If someone's been listening, if they're like a healthcare provider and they're like, hey, we want to cut down some of our costs and help more of our local people in like Nashville or Dallas or something like that, how do they get in touch with you guys? And then I want to ask too, like if you're just a person who cares about the homeless in your community and would love to see Samaritan come to your area, like what do they do? Like how can they be involved? So,
Yeah. Well, message me. My email is just the letter J at samaritan.city. Message me for sure.
okay.
Uh, we would love to serve more lives, and we'd also love to amplify the impact that we're having on our existing, thousands of lives that we're serving today. And so there is an opportunity to invest in our members that's real in the cities that I mentioned. Whether you want to give time and just be a virtual pen pal with our members, we do half hours of hope with companies and faith groups, student groups, where people just jump on Zoom and we letter write together. The members receive these messages on their phone or through email or through their case manager and can respond. And we do these half hour of hopes on a monthly basis. So in the next month, you'll see, hey, were there any responses? Has there been any change? Write some more letters. Over 12 months, I guarantee that you'll see impact. So we do these half hours of hope, and other like virtual volunteering initiatives. And our members are looking for more Samaritans on their team. So if you would like to invest in one or three or five or 50 or 500 of our members, financially, we would love to facilitate that. It's just a rich impact opportunity that truly cuts both ways. And then if you're thinking like, I want to invest in Samaritan's members, but also want to see them reach more people and see this live in my city. We are open to talking to new counties and hospitals and healthcare entities about bringing Samaritan forward. So if you have a contact at city or county, or state, I suppose, or at a hospital that serves our population or a health insurer, um, glad to connect the dots. Just send me a message.
Nice, because now you guys have figured out the model. I mean, you know how to help a person that is homeless. Like you know what it's going to take and how to do it and how to
We're
work in the
learning.
system.
We're
And
learning,
you
but we
know
have
how to
8 years of experience.
Right, right. And you know how to help the healthcare provider save money. So I mean, there at this point, it's just taking it and getting it out to more places and just continuing to get the reps in to prove that the model works effectively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Well, Jonathan, excited about the work you guys are doing. If I'm not mistaken, the website is samaritan.city
that's correct. Yes.
for more information. So samaritan.city, C-I-T-Y, for those who want to dig in and learn a little bit more and get connected with Jonathan because he gave you his email address. That's awesome. I love that the CEO of the company is like, here, just email me. That's excellent, dude. Awesome. Uh, Thanks for your time. Thanks for the work that you guys are doing. So excited to see you guys succeed and so glad that Eagle got to be a part of the story and get to invest. So hope it's a fantastic day. Get out there and transform some lives, man.
Yeah, it's been an awesome fit partnering with you guys. Can't wait to see what happens next.